Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Uncovering the Hidden Agendas, a video series dedicated to showing you all how Satan has put his hand of influence on just about every aspect of society without us even knowing it. So today we're going to dive into technology. In my research, I stumbled upon a picture that was very revealing to me, and I haven't been the same since I've seen that picture. And here that picture is in 3, 2, 1.
There it is. So that's a pretty striking similarity, right, between the Apple logo and the fruit that was eaten in the Garden of Eden at the beginning of time, which was known as the first act of sin, which forever changed the world. So let's dive a little more into that. Apple products are ubiquitous in our homes, and that means that the brand's simple, elegant Apple icon is a part of our daily lives. But what does it mean? Today we'll take a look at the Apple logo meaning and the history of its loaded symbolism. Here's how I used to explain the Apple logo meaning when I taught an art class for teenagers. I'd begin by asking the students, do any of you have an Apple computer or an iPhone? The answer was always yes. Then I'd ask, what does the logo look like? It's an apple, they'd reply. Is it just a plain apple? Is there anything unusual about it? There's a bite out of it. Here's where the fun starts. Have you ever heard a story where someone takes a bite out of an apple? A few moments of silence from the class. Then, Snow White? Right, Snow White, I'd say. Then I'd ask a student to recall the plot. The witch gives Snow White a poisoned apple that kills her. Are there any other stories with an apple? I'd ask, leading them another step back. This time there were usually 2 moments of silence. Sometimes I'd have to nudge them with a clue. Maybe an older story? Eventually someone would shout, "The Bible!" Cue the astounded chorus of, "Whoa!" In the Bible, Adam and Eve are tempted by Satan to taste the fruit from the tree of knowledge. Eve, like Snow White, gives in to temptation and takes a bite of an apple. Once Adam and Eve had their first taste of knowledge, they knew that they were naked and they were ashamed. That first bite of the apple represents the fall of man. The Apple symbol and the Apple Computer's logo symbolizes knowledge. This symbol is one of the oldest and most potent in Western mythology. Apple's use of the logo is extremely powerful. Their name and the corresponding pictorial icon are synonymous. They both say Apple. The symbol logo design deftly carries the heft of centuries of meaning. Apple likes their symbol so much that they're very protective of it, and they don't like when other people attempt to use apples in their logos. 2 examples of Apple logo trademark disputes are Apple versus New York City's GREE-NYC logo and Apple versus Woolworth's Apple-E logo. Rob Janoff, the designer of the Apple logo, claims that he didn't explicitly intend a biblical reference in the Apple logo meaning when he created the logo in 1977. He didn't have to. Mr. Janoff said he included the bite for scale so people get that it was an apple, not a cherry.
Also, it was kind of iconic about taking a bite out of an apple.
Why is the bite iconic? Because of its use as a symbol over hundreds of years of mythology. Former Apple executive Jean-Louis Gasset called the logo the symbol of lust and knowledge. The Apple logo symbolizes our use of their computers to obtain knowledge and ideally enlighten the human race, when we're not too busy using them to look at cat gifs, that is. Moving on, in our standard telling of the Christian creation myth, Eve is tempted to eat forbidden fruit from a tree in the Garden of Eden. However, nowhere in Genesis is the fruit specified as an apple. We are merely told that it is fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. God tells Adam, "Of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat, but of the tree of knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die." Eve disobeys God when she is tempted by the serpent Satan. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat. The forbidden fruit grants wisdom, just like Apple computers do. Of course, the sin of partaking in the tree of knowledge is also the original sin that accounts for the fall of man. If you've ever seen the Terminator movies, you know that technology will also be the fall of man. How appropriate. So if the Bible doesn't specify the fruit as an apple, how did the apple become a primary symbol of this creation myth? The most likely reason comes from fine art. The apple has historically been used as a standard symbol in visual depictions of the Garden of Eden as seen above, and thus accounts for its place in our common knowledge of the biblical creation story. It's likely that painters initially chose the apple because of its prominence in Greek mythology, where it was already being used for very similar purposes. In Greek mythology, the Hesperides are nymphs that reside in a garden of delight where golden apples grow. These apples grant immortality when eaten. The garden was also guarded by a 100-headed dragon named Ladon, who never sleeps. Ladies in a garden, an evil beast, and an apple tree. Sound familiar? The similarities of these myths reveal a fundamental aspect of storytelling. It's a natural human habit to borrow, reuse, and repurpose familiar symbols, plot structures, and other narrative elements. For artists who had a pre-existing association of apples with similar stories that had been told before the birth of Christ, it would have been natural to ascribe the same symbol into the biblical creation tale. So that article raised a lot of good points. We are never told what the fruit is, but we've just assumed it's an apple over years of time, and now we know where that comes from, Greek mythology. But the point I really want to drive home is that the apple, like the class said that the teacher was talking to, represents a bite taken out, aka representing an act of sin. They're not focusing on the whole apple before the sin was committed. They're focusing on the sin. So to me, that's pretty evil, satanic symbolism there. Another piece of trivia related to Apple. The first Apple computer, the Apple I, was sold for $666.66. Try to look up why they sold it for that price. You'll get all kinds of stories and lies. So you might say, hey, those are just coincidences. But let's see if we can't find more things about the Apple brand that have evil symbolism. Alright, number one, iOS, as you probably know, stands for iPhone operating system. But check this out. Eos, or Eos, is a titaness and the goddess of the dawn. But check this out. I don't know how much you guys know IPA, but the symbol for E in IPA is an I. So if you switch that E with an I, kind of looks like that. EOS, iOS. I don't know, it looks pretty similar to me. Alright, moving on. Check this out. Automatic writing is where you allow a demonic spirit to fully control your arm and hand so it can write whatever messages it wants to give you. It is just like the Ouija board where you allow the demon to control the planchette to spell out exactly what it wants to tell you. As with the Ouija board, automatic writing is extremely dangerous, and it will give full legal rights in the spiritual realm for demons to be able to come directly after you if you try to engage in it. Now, what does that sound like to you that's connected to an iPhone? Autocorrect, right? You're trying to type something and all of a sudden something else pops up. That might be a simulation of automatic writing. And then those challenges you see on Facebook. Right? Press the middle button until you get a sentence. That sounds like another simulation of automatic writing. Be vigilant, guys. Siri, of course, the voice connected with the iPhones. Ask her a question, ask her to turn on your music, whatever. What happens when you turn Siri's name around? Put it backwards. You get Iris. And who is Iris? Iris, the personification of the rainbow and a messenger of the gods. Another Greek mythology connection. What's that all about? Moving on. Also connected to Siri, if you don't ask her a question right away, she might pull up some examples. Look at that down there near the bottom. Apple paid $20 to Orion. Orion? A giant huntsman and a demigod son of Poseidon. Oh my gosh, all these mythological and pagan connections inside one phone. What's going on here? And then the symbol you see for recording your screen. We've seen that symbol back in episode 2. That's representative of the Egyptian sun god, Ra. And that dot and the circle are also representative of other ritualistic and occult practices.
Also emojis. Out of the hundreds of emojis that the iPhone has, quite a few are evocative of witchcraft and witches and Halloween, other occult practices.
Apple Music. Their logo's changed throughout the years, but you see now they're moving toward that red and blue duality, which we talked about in episode 1. So that's Apple. What about Android? Android's logo was inspired by Android from the Gauntlet video game series back for the Atari console. And Gauntlet was basically a video game series where warriors would be put up against ghosts, warlocks, that means people who practice witchcraft, and other monsters. Google Play. If you turn the logo sideways, kind of looks like the seal of Satan, the seal of Lucifer. You see the exact shapes inside the triangle. If you flip it around, looks pretty similar. And of course, Android was developed by Google. But the G of Google, still kind of wondering about this one, but I think it looks pretty similar to the G of Freemasons, which we saw in episode 5.
And of course, the default internet browser for Android phones is Google Chrome, and we've already seen the significance of their logo.
And these are a couple outdated examples, but the Android Product Store, which I guess is the predecessor of Google Play, again has a similarity to that Masonic square and compass. And Google GPS kind of looks like the Eye of Providence. Alright, what are some other examples in technology or apps or websites that depict sin or some type of evil practice? AOL.com. This one surprised me. I don't know how many people use AOL anymore. You can use it to create an email, you can search things on AOL, get the news, sports, whatever. But look where AOL came from. The Owl of Athena. Look at that picture on the right. What does that say? AOL. And what is the Owl of Athena? Represents or accompanies Athena, the virgin goddess of wisdom. Another deity. And if you turn AOL around, you get things called Lua, which are the spirits of voodoo. So AOL is like a double whammy. It's crazy. Snapchat logo. Why is there a ghost on the Snapchat logo? The iconic ghost face Chilla depicted in the Snapchat logo represents the essence of the application and the fact that the photos in it are being deleted after the time set by a user. The ghost is a graphical reflection of the brand's phantom policy. I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to use an app that has a ghost as its logo. And then you get all kinds of ideas about, oh, the picture has disappeared, but it's still there somewhere, right? Ooh, let's not get into all that. Just don't use the app. Moving on. TikTok. Again, another example of red and blue duality, and you see a TikTok house here that shows the same thing. So there you have it, quite a few examples of how technology, websites, apps all have some kind of undercover satanic connection. Both phones that are popular in society, like who uses a BlackBerry anymore? Who uses flip phones anymore? Everyone either has an Apple or an Android, and both of them have all of these satanic connections that we just talked about. Share this with a friend who you think may benefit from this information, and I will see you guys in episode 7. Be vigilant, my friends.